Hey everyone, it's Liz. Welcome to Blue and Hazel, my homeschool channel. And if you're new, I'd love to have you subscribe. And if you enjoy this video and find it helpful, thank you for giving it a thumbs up. That really helps my channel. And today I really want to just kind of dive into an update on how it's been using the Brave Writer darts. We are going on our second year and using it with a second and third grader this year. I have a video I'll put in the description, just like how we used it and how kind of like how we scheduled it out from last year when we used the darts with a first and second grader. This video is hopefully just going to give you a little bit more of an update, as well as take you through the entire kind of month's worth of work and show you in a realistic way just how it repeats itself week after week. We just finished up Wishtree, so I will kind of take you through that today, and also just want to update you like how it's been going, why we're sticking with it, things I find hard about it. You know, I loved the idea of the dart just because I love Julie Bogart and I love her approach to language arts. So if you're not familiar with the darts, it's a language arts program. So inside of here, you're going to find copywork, you'll find grammar, you'll find literary devices, and it pairs every month with a new book. So everything that's being talked about inside the dart goes along with the book that you're reading that month. So I love that it's a literature guide. Keyword here is guide. It's really not an open and go program, which is really hard for a lot of people, myself included, when we switched over. And it took probably 1 to 2 full months to just kind of feel like I had the swing of things. The first month was horrible. I almost gave up. I just thought, this is too hard. How do you organize what you're supposed to do each day? Now that we've done, you know, almost 2 years worth of darts, I can really feel like the rhythm of every single one is pretty much the same. So you see the same pattern in week 1 of each dart, you see the same pattern in week 2, 3, and 4. And the kids kind of know what to expect with the copywork. They know I'm going to be talking about the copywork a lot. And they know that we're going to be looking for examples of things we're talking about inside of actual books, and that there are no worksheets. So they kind of know what to expect. I kind of know what to expect. It's gotten a lot smoother, but the first few months are really bumpy. I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. So the way that we used it with my first and second grader is really similar to how we're using it with them at second and third grade, but it's able to really grow with them as they grow. So like copywork, for instance, we're gonna do that every single week, and they are better at it this year than they were last year. They're older, their hands are stronger, they remember things a little bit easier, like paying attention to word spacing and capitals and punctuation, things like that. So I can see the progress, and that makes me really happy about just copywork in general, but also the program. I've been able to see a lot of repetition throughout all of the different darts that we've done. So one of the big fears and questions I had when we start was like, well, if you can pick each dart that you want to do, and you can't do all of the darts really, because there's going to be eventually too many, how do you know that you're covering, you know, A to Z and everything that you should be covering for second grade or third grade? And that was just a really big confusing point for me. What I found is that each dart is going to have its own set things that you'll cover, and some of those things are going to be repeated in different darts. So we've probably done six darts last year, and we'll probably do 6 to 7 this year by the end. And I have noticed so many repeat things as we've gone through them, and then some new things in each one. And I feel like the things that they should be retaining at this age, especially in the little years, they're repeated often, and the things that are less important at this age are repeated less often. And my hope is that, you know, if it's important, that we'll get it as they get older. But I really do like that gentle approach in the early years. That's a little bit of the Charlotte Mason influence in our homeschool that I appreciate and look for, and you'll find in this program. It's very gentle, and there are no worksheets, just copywork. I feel like you really don't need to worry about if you're covering enough different grammar concepts. If you are going, just so long as you are actually going through several darts per year. Like if you're only gonna cover 2 or 3 darts a year, yeah, you're probably not gonna hit as many of those grammar concepts. But that's okay too, if that's how you want your homeschool to look, or if you have other ways that you're bringing in language arts in your homeschool. So I feel like we are just at this good spot with like it being enough. There's this really neat sheet that Julie and her team have put together, and it's like an Excel sheet I will put in the description, but it's basically a sheet of like all of the different grammar concepts and literary devices that you'll see in each of the darts. If I had to point out a couple of things that have just been harder over the year and a half or so that we've been using this, is that sometimes it would be really nice to just have like an independent worksheet to hand the kids and be like, go do your language arts right now, ask me if you have questions. That's not really possible with this, except on like the copywork portion where they don't need me. This is really a conversation-based program. Without the worksheets, that could be a huge adjustment for you, especially if you're coming from something else where your kids are used to like day 1, boom, day 2, boom, you know. But overall, I really, really do love this program, and I feel like the kids are soaking up things that they're supposed to be soaking up in a gentle way. And I'm not sure like if we'll use them forever, but they're working so well for our family that I don't really have any plans to change. At some point, I have seen a lot of Brave Writer families use something called Fix-It grammar, and that is just something I have in the back of my head that we may end up adding in at some point. But I'm not sure if we might try that like 4th or 5th grade. I'm just not really sure right now. This has just been a really fun way to read books together. I like that we can squish kids both at the same time and do this together. That saves me time. We have 4 kids at home, and right now 2 of them are using the Dart. And one thing I'm kind of wondering about is like when my older kiddos are doing one level and then I have different books that my younger 2 will eventually be doing. I don't quite know like how that will line up for me having to read both of the books to both groups, and also just like doing the literature guides with both. I'm just not really sure what that'll look like, but we're not there yet, so I'm not going to worry about that. But if you do have kiddos in 2 different groups, I would love to hear from you how you make that work. That's my goal eventually. Let's go ahead and take a look inside of the Dart, and I will show you what it looks like to actually use this. If you're brand new, be sure to print out the Dart guidelines that comes with your PDF when you buy it. And side note, I only ever buy Darts a la carte. I buy the ones that we want to read because we never end up finishing 10 books a year. That's just going to be too many for us. You know, you could just get 1, try it out, or 2. I recommend people try 2 because your first one is just so rough. It's so different that the second one's a lot smoother. What you'll see in each of the Darts is what she calls spin and spiral, but it's basically going to be everything that you cover. You know, you're going to be covering question marks, adjectives, perspective, implied subjects, turning point, pronouns, verbs, exclamation points, dialogue verbs, tension, contractions, personification, onomatopoeia, possessive pronouns, and character names. Okay, so come week 1, what we have here is there's a copywork passage, and different Darts I've noticed really have different lengths of copywork. So some are pretty short. I would consider this to be really, really short copywork. Some are going to be, you know, a little bit closer to almost a paragraph. I don't know that it matters as much as I used to think it did, because if you have a kid who this is clearly way too little copywork and their hands don't even get tired and they're, you know, needing a more of a challenge, then what I would do is go to this spot. It tells you right where the copywork passage is from, and just add on an extra sentence to here if they need a little bit more writing. We sometimes will just put this on the table like this, and I'll have my 2 kids sit on the same side of the table and do the copywork passage. Or you can write it out on a whiteboard. That's been really helpful, especially when it comes time to point out some of the things on the next page, which brings me to the what to note page. So whenever we do copywork, I like to go ahead and either write it out and we point out the things on the whiteboard that are here. So, you know, indent paragraphs, contractions, homophones, plural nouns, and pronouns. And sometimes they know what these things are, sometimes they have no clue what they are. Like a ton of the darts will have similar things that they've seen before, like capitals, and they're like, oh yeah, there's the capital letters, or, you know, punctuation, and they'll, you know, circle the periods or the question marks and things like that. So there's a lot of like repeat things that you'll see on the what to note page. And that's good because that's the review that you get when you do lots and lots of darts, especially over the course of a year or 2 years. And then after that, we're basically done for the day. They do their copy work and we point out the what to note things in that copy work. And then the next day we would come and we would do how to teach this passage. Generally speaking, I feel like we can do the how to teach this passage in 1 to 2 days. This explains how to do the copy work, so you don't even have to like do anything for that really. The spelling words, I actually skipped this section now because we're using All About Spelling separately with my 3rd grader and no program for spelling for my 2nd grader. We're just kind of working on reading for her right now. So here in the how to teach this passage, I would be focusing on question marks and adjectives. Oh, and perspective. So those 3 things, question marks, adjectives, and perspective. And it's going to teach me how to talk about those. And these things are all things that relate to that copywork passage. So we would probably pull the copywork back up. Either they'd open their binders where they write their copywork in, or I could bring this page back up, our copywork, and I would just be talking about question marks in there. Like the letters of the alphabet, punctuation marks are made from combinations of lines, curves, and dots. Question marks use all these 3 shapes. Practice with the finger in the air. The dot's related to the period, which signifies the end of a sentence. A question mark also announces a sentence is over. That's why it includes the dot. Plop a dot down and you know the sentence has ended. But a question mark indicates a sentence that wonders about something, and its shape kind of wanders a bit, doesn't it? Curve, line, dot. Find some ways to practice question marks today. Trace them with a finger in a dish of cornmeal or flour. So this would obviously be like for older kids, like my 3rd grader. He knows what question marks are for. He knows where to place them. He knows how to write them. This would be too easy for him, and that's okay. But it's great practice for my 2nd grader, and it was great practice when she was in 1st grade. If that's too wordy, you can skip it. You can just say, hey guys, point out the question marks in our passage. Okay, why are they there? And if they don't know, you can explain it. If they do know, bam, skip. Then we would go to adjectives. And I'd say I would just kind of read some of these things. And in the beginning, when I was brand new, I would go through and read this entire thing before sitting down with my kids. Otherwise, I was kind of a mess. I used to go actually like highlight which parts I wanted to say to the kids so that I wouldn't like lose their attention and stuff. We're a little bit more used to it now, so I feel like I can kind of do this open and go now. But if you're brand new, I would read through, you know, the things that you're going to talk about that day. So what do you want to actually say under the question marks? What do you actually want to say to your kids about adjectives? And then just like highlight this up. You know, what do you actually want to say about perspective? Highlight it up. And then that's all you're going to do that day. And so, yeah, so as an example, you can see here, let's look at some of the words Red uses to describe animals. Red is the tree in our story. Birds are delightful. Frogs are grumpy. Snakes are terrible gossips. Delightful, grumpy, good-hearted, and terrible are all adjectives. Words that give extra information about nouns. Adjectives can tell you about the color, the red ball, or the size, the giant ball, or the shape, the round ball. So you get the idea. It tells you how to teach your kids what an adjective is. So if you've forgotten from grade school what it is, it doesn't matter. It's all here. For perspective, this would be the same day. We would be, like I said, talking about question marks, adjectives, and perspective this one day. By now you've noticed that Red is the narrator of this story. When the person or tree who tells the story is also a character inside the story, we call that first person point of view. maybe Red would consider it first tree point of view. Because Red tells a story, we get a very special perspective of the events. Red, like many oak trees, has been around for a long time and seen many creatures, including humans, come and go. What special insight does that give Red? And it just kind of like was a really, really natural way for them to be like, oh yeah, Red's telling the story. Okay, that's first person, you know. Now, Spotlight Grammar, every single week, there's going to be this page called Spotlight Grammar. And then in week 4, there will be no Spotlight Grammar because they've instead done something called a literary device. But this would be kind of its own special day for us. So we have the copywork day, we have the how to teach the passage day with these like things that we're bringing up, which you saw was question marks, adjectives, and perspective. And then Spotlight Grammar for us would be like the last thing that we would really be doing that week on the Dart. This particular week was kind of odd for me, but it was a great way for us to kind of learn about like subject, predicate, what that kind of official part of a sentence is, what a sentence needs. There would be a Spotlight Grammar for each week, and I will take you to see what the other ones are in just a second. So here we have week 2. We're going to repeat the exact same thing. I like to write this on the whiteboard. I just find it really helpful to have this written out for some reason. It tells you where the passage work is from, chapter 13, page 50. This just is a good reminder to stop and ask your kids any big juicy questions before moving on. Right here, this is the back of the Dart. So things to ask your kids before you read, little way in, further in, near the climax and at the end. These are just kind of book study questions. And then we're back to the what to note page. So I always do this on the same day as we do the copy work, but I never ask them these questions while they're doing the copy work because they're really focused and not really paying attention to me. And so I let them do the copy work, then I come sit down at the table and we talk about these things. And sometimes I'll cross out something if I don't think I want to cover it. If it just seems too advanced or like, no, we're not there yet, I'll cross it out. So in this particular one, you can see we're going to be talking about dialogue, punctuation, quotation marks, and attribution tags. And so I would just read this to them and then we would go point them out in the passage. Like, can you tell me where you see quotation marks? Oh, awesome. Yeah. Why are they there? Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then we talk about attribution tags, and it teaches me what they are and the kids what they are. And then we would go point them out over here. So quote within a quote, you could point that out that there's a quote within a quote over here, but this is a little bit advanced for where we are. I'm pretty sure that like I just cruised over that. Past tense verbs. Red tells a story in past tense relating events that have already happened. That's why the verbs are crossed, stepped, and said instead of crosses, steps, and says. Can you think of any books you've read that are written in the past or present tense? If you aren't sure, grab a book or two and examine the verbs together. We talk about homonyms in the passage. So we would come point it out in the passage, and then that's it for the day. Now we have the how to teach this passage with the big yellow stripe, and I try to do this kind of on its own day. And week 2 is a little bit special. You have something called French style dictation. Like, I would print this out for them. In the back of the Dart, you'll see there's French style dictation. So I'd print this out for the kids. And then they would fill in the words that they hear me say that are missing. Every Dart, you'll get one of these on week 2. And that's going to be a little bit different than week 1 where you didn't have that. But, you know, it's fine. Just follow this. It's here. When you see it, you can do that with your kids. Then we would cover turning point, verbs and nouns from the passage. Teaches you what they are and how to say it. And pronouns. So we've seen pronouns lots and lots of times in the Darts before. And then this would be Spotlight Grammar, its own separate day again. And we are adding with adverbs. And there's always an activity that goes along with the Spotlight Grammar. Well, here are some verbs to spice up with adverbs. How many ways can you enhance the meaning of the verb with an adverb? 8, as in the dog ate. slowly or whatever. So fill in the blank with the adverb of your choice. Need a hint? Greedily, ravenously, sloppily, happily. So you can do the activity for the day with the Spotlight Grammar. And then we have week 3. So here you'll see the new copywork passage, and then we talk about these things that I want to cover: proper nouns, all caps, shouting, interjections, commas, how come. Those are all from this passage that we're going to talk about what they are and point them out. Day 1, boom, done. Then the next time we'd pull out our Dart this week, we would get how to teach this passage with the yellow stripe, and I would try to cover in one day basically anything from there that I think is like stuff that's like age appropriate, I guess, that seems like what I want to talk about. So here it looks like we actually didn't do the dictation part, and we did do the attribution tags and dialogue verbs. We talked about those, and then definitely used the guide to help me do that. And then we did the try it part, which says tag your it. Can you think of other verbs used in the dialogue? Flip through some novels and see what verbs you can find in attribution tags. Now this is fun because we just talked about attribution tags last week, and they're tagging onto that basically. So instead of like said the crow, it might say hollered the crow, or wondered the crow, things like that. So we could open up our book to any page basically and try to find some verbs that are doing this pattern here. The next time we would do Dart that week, it would be the last time, and it would be Spotlight Grammar. And so with the activity that goes along with the Spotlight Grammar. And so here we would be learning about contractions, and we just kind of practiced like looking up lists of contractions and talking about how they squish together, and that was the activity. That was easy. Then we have the last week of the Dart, same thing, beginning of the week, copywork. Pause and ask those big juicy questions if you need to. We would point out the what to note page from the passage. That same Monday for us is when I like to do this. Commas, em dashes, italics, and onomatopoeia, repetition, and periods. Those are all things that I'd be pointing out or asking them to point out if they can find them in the passage. Okay, next day of week 4 would be how to teach this passage with the big yellow stripe. Reverse dictation is something special to this particular week, and this only happens once in the Dart. So we did French dictation last time where we had to fill in the words. Reverse dictation is going to be basically editing. So I remember doing this in elementary school. You get a passage, the one that you've been working on all week. Now it's spelled wrong and it has things missing, and you are going to help your kids fix it. Here are all of the things that were missing. If you need help with French dictation, if you need help with reverse dictation, they're all like help for how to do that in the Dart guidelines, which you can print out separately and read, which I think is really helpful in the first couple months. In the very, very last week, instead of the Spotlight Grammar, we have this thing called literary device, and that's what you're going to see here. And this one is really simple in Wishtree. There's funky ways that the creatures all like name each other, and so this is kind of practice creating funky names based on like any types of rules that we make up, and that is like an activity. Every single Dart has one literary device. Book party ideas, and these are just to kind of help you at the end of the Dart to put together something fun for your kids. I have a video on how we kind of try to organize our book parties that are like not super spectacular, but also I think just really special for the kids. I'll put that in the description, but she gives you awesome ideas on things to eat, activities to do, ways to decorate. You don't have to use her ideas, but you can. And then, yeah, so that's how we use the Dart. So you can kind of see how it works. You know, you have the copywork, you point things out in the copywork. You do the how to teach this passage with some more grammar items listed in there. Then you have your Spotlight Grammar where you focus on one thing. You have an activity to kind of bring it home, and then next week. It follows the same rhythm and it really does get smoother, I promise. All right, guys, I hope that was really helpful for you. Sorry, it was kind of long. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up, and be sure to check out a few of those videos in the description if you want to see our other Brave Writer videos.